Hello everyone. So from this lecture we are going to start a new chapter, that is human health and disease. Before I'll start with the modern concept of health, let us talk about what was the earlier concept of health. So earlier in Ayurveda as well as in Western medicine. So according to Ayurveda and Western medicine, there was a theory that is popular, that is called good humor theory. So we'll talk about that. What was that good humor theory? So according to Ayurveda and Western medicine, in earlier time, in the body there are four fluids, that what we call as humor. So there was four humor in body, and what were these four humors were? So the first one, that was, we know that it is blood. The second, it is called as yellow bile, that was known as yellow bile. The third was known as black bile, and the fourth one was known as phlegm. We know now that what is blood, we know that what is yellow bile. Probably the yellow bile, it must be the normal bile that is produced from the liver. There is nothing as such black bile, right? So, and we know that what is phlegm is the mucus that is produced. So in olden time, what was the consideration and what was the belief? The belief was that if all these four, if all these four, that is called humor, basically liquid. So I'm saying, if these four fluids are in a balanced state, if they are in a balanced state, then the person would be in a health condition, then the person would be considered as a healthy. But let's say if any imbalance occur between these fluid, then the person become unhealthy. So people used to think that if somehow some person catches the fever, then it is believed that what was the belief? The belief was that the fever is because of increase in the black bile concentration. So what they used to do, they used to cut the blood vessel, let's say of the hand, and they let out flow the blood, okay, out from the body. And they used to think that that is a that is a bad blood, and if that bad blood flow out from the body, then the person would be the healthy. But now we know that there is no as such kind of thing. There was nothing like black bile, so that is why this theory, it was discarded. But that was an earlier brief. So how this theory basically discarded? So this theory discarded after the discovery of blood circulation. So who discovered the blood circulation? So William Harvey. William Harvey, he discovered blood circulation. So he discovered blood circulation and also disprove good humor hypothesis. Good humor hypothesis. Now we need to understand that what is this good humor hypothesis. So this, that if all these four fluids are in a balanced state, then it is considered as a health. So that is actually the good humor hypothesis that was then later rejected. So now that was the earlier concept of the health. Let us now talk about what is the modern concept of the health. So let us start with that now. So we need to have an idea that what is the modern concept of health. So everyone, if I talk about the modern concept of health, so according to WHO, if I just speak according to WHO, so we know that I think this marker is not visible, right? Wait. So I think it is on pause now. Yeah. So let us now talk about that what is according to WHO. So according to WHO, what health was considered as? So health is defined as, so it is defined as a state of complete physical, mental, social and emotional aspect, social and emotional well-being. Well-being. So according to WHO, that is World Health Organization, we know that health is defined as a state of complete physical, mental, and social, emotional well-being. It is not just the absence of disease. Of course, we can't say a person healthy if the person is just having no disease. So right, we need to understand, okay, just absence of a disease, absence of a disease cannot considered as health, cannot be considered as health. But now there's a question that according to this definition, how many of us are healthy? Then the answer would be no one, because anyhow we are in a stress. Parent has their stress, student has their own stress of competition, and teachers has their own stress, like completion of a syllabus on time, deliver the content in such a manner so that the student get that. So everyone has a little or more stress. So according to this definition, we can't be healthy. So we can consider ourselves healthy if we are having no disease. So that is a one aspect. The another aspect of health is that you know again, that is provided by Ayurveda, that if someone has willing to do, I mean to say, like, let's say if you wake up in the early morning and you have a will to do work, if you have will to do work, you have will to go to school, you have a will to study, so that means you are healthy itself, right? So having a health is also determined from your mental status. If you are feeling healthy, if you are feeling happy, if you are willing to do new things, that fine. If you are even suffer from some disease but you are healthy, so that is a concept. But being technically, of course, health definition is now in front of you. Okay, so that is a modern concept of health. Now there should be a question, there is a question that how we can maintain the health. So what are the parameters that one has to follow to maintain a health? So how to maintain health, how to maintain a good health? Because having a good health is necessary for all of us. Having a healthy life, having a healthy lifestyle is necessary to all of us. So how can we maintain that good health? So let us now talk about. So first of all, include a balanced diet. I'm sure you have heard that you have to avoid much of the junk food and maida containing food. I mean to say, it is good to have a balanced diet. Regular exercises anyways required. Now, when we are talking about regular exercise, we didn't mean to that you have to go to the gym and develop your biceps and tricep. Regular exercise means you have to walk a daily, you have to do yoga, you can do dancing, you can do swimming and kind of thing, so that you can, you stretch. You are just doing yoga and stretching your body. So you are, again, that is one of the main practice to keep you in healthy, right? It is important that we keep all of our body parts in a stretch state, in a normal working state. So that is important. Okay, third one would be maintain our own as well as community hygiene. So self and community hygiene, and community hygiene or hygienicity is anyways important. So there are few other parameters, such as drink drink clean water. So drink a clean water, or boil water, or boiled water. You can boil the water, you can let the water cool, you can let the water cool for the cool down, and then you can drink that water, of course. So there are certain parameters, because we'll talk about that there are certain diseases which can also spread through contaminated food and water. So that is a small concept about the health. Now everyone, in this complete chapter, of course this is a very healthy chapter, but in this healthy chapter we have to talk about the diseases. So I am now moving toward the disease, that what do we mean by disease and what is the classification of disease now. Okay, so let us talk about that, what do we mean by disease. When we speak about disease, so how we can define the disease? So anything, I should say, let's say, anything that impairs health, that impairs health, or any physical or functional change, or we can say that any physical or functional change that causes discomfort. So it is a kind of any physical or functional change that causes discomfort is a disease. How can we classify disease? So we can classify disease into various parameters. So let us now talk about the classification of disease. How can we classify diseases? Okay, the first parameter I'm taking on the basis of time duration. On the basis of time duration. So if we talk about the time duration, so we can classify disease as acute and chronic. So we can divide disease as acute disease or a chronic disease. We know that what is acute disease. So acute disease lasts for a short period of time. So it's just for a short time period. So it's for a short time period, and the symptoms of acute disease usually are of high intensity. I'm sure you have faced common cold. So when you are having a common cold for a day or two, might experience that the nose is closed. I mean to say, your nose, you feel that your nose is blocked, and you have a running nose and headache, and let's say little high fever. So that is what I'm trying to say. In acute disease, in acute problem, the symptoms shows high intensity. Shows high intensity. Apart from this, what is the meaning of chronic disease? So chronic diseases are those which last for long, time period, but their symptoms are of low grade, not that intense. Although symptoms increases with time, but initially, or symptoms are of low intensity. So symptoms are of low intensity. Let's talk about the typhoid, or let's say tuberculosis. So in tuberculosis, low grade fever is maintained throughout the day, 90 degrees Fahrenheit and 97-degree Fahrenheit and kind of thing. Similarly, in typhoid, sometimes typhoid can go unnoticed because the patient is asymptomatic. So we'll have a case of a typhoid completely in our syllabus, so we'll do that. So that is the first classification of disease. We can classify disease as acute or chronic. Second, we can classify disease on the basis of origin. What is the origin of the disease? Based upon that also we can classify disease. Okay, so how can we classify disease based on its origin? So a disease can be congenital, or a disease may be acquired. What is the meaning of congenital? So if a disease is present by birth, so if a disease is present by birth, so it is by birth, or it is usually acquired after birth. Now, even by birth, how can we get the disease? So we can have a various parameter. The disease firstly can be genetic disease. A problem can be genetic. Genetic, we have many examples. I'm sure we have discussed already in the 5th and 6th chapter. Mainly we had discussed in the 5th chapter, let's say Down syndrome. We know what is called Turner syndrome. We know what we known as Edward syndrome, Cry-Duchet syndrome, Patau syndrome, hemophilia, let's say phenylketonuria, thalassemia, color blindness. All these are genetic disorder, right? That is congenital, means the child or the baby born with these diseases. The second can be developmental disorder. Of course, they are also with the birth, so that is, but they are not because of the due to genetics. That is because of developmental defects. So that comes under developmental disorder. Developmental disorder. So if we talk about now developmental disorder, what can be the example for us? So let's say cleft palate. I'm sure you have observed some people having, there is a a problem in their palate, so that is a cleft palate. There's a hole in the palate. Sometimes the lip is not completely formed, so that is called cleft lip. There are many such problems. Apart from this, a disorder, a congenital disorder, it can be a Let's suppose if organism, it can be transplacental problem. Let me explain what is the meaning of transplacental first, and then we'll do the details. So problem can be transplacental. Let's say child is completely healthy, child is not having any genetic disorder or not having developmental disorder. But let's suppose mother is having some disease, let's say syphilis, and the syphilis is in the syphilis is in its tertiary stage. We have studied the fourth chapter, that is reproductive health, and we have discussed that syphilis can be transmitted from mother to their child, to the fetus, in the tertiary stage. And of course then the virus can cross the placenta, and virus can cross the placenta. So anything that can cross the placenta, that is called transplacental substance, right? It is important. So that is why a disease can be transplacental. So under this we can talk about chronic syphilis. HIV. HIV can also be transplacental. We know that HIV virus can cross placenta. There are many diseases. Let's say erythroblastosis fetalis. Erythroblastosis fetalis. In erythroblastosis fetalis, what exactly happened? That if the mother is Rh negative but the fetus is Rh positive, so one pregnancy is normal, but in other pregnancy complication may arise. We know that female body may develop antibodies against Rh antigen, and they are of IgG type. And we had discussed that IgG antibodies can cross the placenta, and that's how they can reach to the growing fetus, and they can destroy the RBCs of the growing fetus, and that what it lead to the erythroblastosis fetalis. So that is another example of that particular thing. Now, so that is about congenital disorder, that if a disease is by birth, then we call it as congenital. After the congenital, we should have an idea about acquired disorder. So what is acquired disorder? A disorder what we get during our lifetime, that can be acquired disorder. We can also classify acquired disorder as, now it can be infectious disorder. May possible that the problem that one acquire may transmit to other person, so that is called infectious or communicable. What can be the example of communicable disease? So let's say the easiest is cholera. Let's say we know that cholera, typhoid, pneumonia. Of course, pneumonia can be transmitted through droplet infection. COVID, we had exposure about it. There are many diseases which can transmit. The second disorder under acquired, that is non-infectious or non-communicable. So the second one is non-infectious, or non-communicable. Okay. Now, under non-communicable or non-infectious disease, what all disease comes? So that one person can't transmit to the another. So we have example of, yes, what are the diseases? So let's say we can take the example of diabetes. We can the example of, let's say, we have many diseases. Let's say cancer. That is a problem. So there are many diseases which are non-communicable as well. Let's say headache, if there is, let's suppose there is a thyroid problem, hypothyroidism, hyperthyroidism, multiple problems are again there. So that can't be transmitted from one person to another. So that comes under the non-infectious disorder. So that is how we can classify the disease. Okay, that is the first parameter. We can classify the disease on the basis of duration. The second, on the basis of either the child is born with the disease or the child acquired that disease. Now the third classification, that is very important again, on the basis of infectious agent or on the basis of agent. On the basis of agent. How the child is having that disease, so on the basis of that agent, a disease can be a bacterial, a disease can be a viral, a disease can be because of fungi, let's say. The disease can be due to protozoan. The disease can be due to helminth, that is worms. These are five main biological agents that can be the cause of a particular problem. Let's say the example of bacterial. So in bacterial we have many examples. Let's say typhoid. We'll talk about all these diseases in detail, so don't worry. We will talk about, let's say, tuberculosis. We'll talk about leprosy. We'll talk about pneumonia. Pneumonia can be because of viral, fungal as well. So, but I'm writing it here in the bacterial. We'll talk also about diphtheria. We'll also talk about, let's say, pertussis. So we'll also talk about tetanus. Okay, tetanus, though there are many diseases that we'll talk about. Okay, yeah. So these are some common bacterial disorder. About viral disorders, so of course, let's say we have HIV, we have smallpox, we have chickenpox, let's say we have COVID, we have hepatitis. So there are many diseases again. Due to fungal, the most common disease is ringworm. It is just the name is a ringworm, right? There is nothing with worm, right, associated with it. Well, there are many fungal diseases, eye problem, candidiasis and so, but the most common that we'll talk about the ringworm. In protozoan, definitely malaria comes. I'm writing mainly those diseases with what I will cover during the discussion, right? Malaria. We'll talk about Kala Azar. Let's say, you know, uh, we'll talk about, let's say, sleeping sickness. Okay, so there are, dysentery. That is because of Entamoeba histolytica, if I'm correct, right? So these are under the helmin, the diseases that are due to worms. Okay, that is Ascariasis. Ascarias is the name of the pathogen. Ascariasis is the disease name. Filariasis, that is also known as elephantiasis. So there are tons of diseases, of course. So that is a basic classification of disease. Apart from this, we have to be aware with certain terminologies. Let's say, that what is pathogen. So I'm sure you are good with that. Let me see how much time we have spent. So almost 22 minutes we have covered here. Okay, let me discuss now the other terminologies in the next video. In the next video, most probably we will be starting from the disorders. So I will be starting from, let's say, bacterial disorder. We'll talk about typhoid and other diseases. Or maybe we'll talk about certain other terminologies, like that is what is epidemiology, what is you know prophylaxis, what kind of treatment we have to given, what is pathogen, or let's say what is etiology and other terms as well. But if I will start from the disease from the next class, then don't worry, we'll talk these topics and points in between the disorders. So that is for the day. If you really like the video, do subscribe and do like. Thank you very much.